Welcome back to another episode of the Table Network podcast. My name is Zach, here with...
I'm Kenzie.
And I'm Chris.
And we're all back in town.
We are.
Feels good to have
back.
Table.
Yeah.
the gang back together.
Feels right.
It's crunch time. We're on the road to DCX.
We are in a full sprint towards DCX. If it's not a marathon
It's almost
anymore.
like, we're running out of time.
Ooh.
Wow, what an excellent segue into our topic for today, Chris.
Time. Today we're talking about time and how we can leverage our time and recognize other people's time in order to unify with them.
Yeah. Should I share my wise quote that I came up with yesterday?
I love it.
I don't even know if I can claim, but realizing that in order to be unified, you have to provide clarity. And in order to provide clarity, you have to know how you're using your time.
Yeah.
Wise.
It is. Beyond your years.
I know. Crazy. Sad that was an epiphany I had yesterday, but, it's just laying it out there for me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's actually, I feel like one of the key points in unity. And so it's interesting, we haven't talked about it all year, but if you're not unified on how you're using your time, it's going to create a lot of division.
Yeah.
So it really is like a key factor.
Put that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a bit long, but yes, I would agree.
All around the bumper.
That's right.
no, this is good. And it piggybacks directly off the last conversation that we were able to have around purpose and guiding principles. Purpose is where you're going. It's your destination. Guiding principles direct you to your destination. Time is ultimately what gets the vehicle out of idle and gets you moving forward and gets you to where you want to go. So you've got to make sure that you're using your time and other people's time well. I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because as a leader, the best thing you can do is help people tie their time to purpose. And so how do you do that? Otherwise, it plays out in a lot of different ways. I'm building resentment because I don't think you're doing what you're supposed to do, or I am being resentful because I don't feel like my trade on time is going anywhere. It feels fruitless, and I want to do something that's meaningful.
Yeah. Well, I think about the analogy that you picture, like if you're on a road, if you don't talk about how you're going to utilize your time, you're just weaving back and forth and back and forth. But if you can actually talk about it and prioritize your time, then it helps the road be a little straighter, and it helps you get there faster than if you're just weaving left and right. Nobody really knows how to use their time. So it helps you create that straight and narrow path at least a little bit more. So
Yeah, and that analogy translates over to one that I use a lot, which is the whole, we're in a boat. And
what
I love about the boat analogies is that you have a road, but a lot of those have been set before I've gotten there. I'm not the one creating the road or the path, but in a boat, you're on a lake or an ocean, and the path isn't set. We know where we want to go, but I could literally go any way that I want to get there. And I love how purpose can give us the same destination, the same target. And then now we have something to judge objectively, how we're spending our time. Either we're moving toward that destination or we're not. And there's no middle ground. There's no neutral, because when you're putting forth effort, when you're spending your time, you're either moving closer to that target, or even if you're moving laterally, you're moving away from the target. And so that's what ends up happening, I think, in a lot of organizations or teams or groups of people. It's the lateral movements that sometimes make it hard to understand, are we getting where we want to go? And so prioritizing your time in relation to that target, it's more objective. You can say, okay, well, if you want to work on that task, Zach, explain how that gets us closer to the end line here, the goal or the target. And as long as you can explain it, and then it's okay, well, then that needs to be a high priority task. And so how we spend our time, it doesn't have to be always so subjective to where it's I am out here on an island thinking about it, what I'm doing every day, or when I show up to work, it's I'm going to work on these 8 things. The question needs to be asked is, are those 8 things moving us closer to our target, our purpose, or not?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all want to get to that destination. It's just knowing how we can all help move us closer.
Yeah.
And I think as a leader, I'm thinking in terms of like return on time invested. I can only multiply my time by doing that through other people. But the example's good. Like, Zach, what are you doing? I get asked that a lot. And how is that moving us towards our purpose? And I might fully understand it, but without open lines of communication, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times those thoughts just turn into resentment. Like, he was just doing whatever in the corner again.
Four words rattle around our brains a lot to Zach. What are you doing?
Yeah. And we fill in the gap, but with relationship and open lines of communication and rhythms of gathering where we're all moving in the same direction, then we can all trust and multiply and move forward together.
And oftentimes in those conversations, it's like, oh, like there are times where like,
Right.
I see what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that also is the trap of time, is I can only see what I see.
Yeah.
And so in this idea of moving in towards unity, it is having those open lines, being a humble learner.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, what, like, walk me through it, not in a jerk way, but like, hey, help me understand, because I see effort and I want to reward effort, but sometimes I'm just unaware. I don't see it as clearly as you see it.
Yeah. Well, in thinking of the boat analogy, like there's 1,000 different ways to get there.
Yeah.
The captain's the one that actually knows the best way to get there, because sure, the fastest way is as the bird flies, it's a direct line. But if there's an obstacle or something that comes up, we may have to alter our path.
Yeah.
The same is true for our teams.
Absolutely.
And so it's kind of a two-way communication that builds trust and best uses time.
Well, I'm thinking through too, like you have to have that constant communication. Like the more you have it, the better, because just 1 degree off will really change your trajectory.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you might be on the same path one day, something else happens. And if you're not constantly realigning what are our priorities, somebody can start drifting off, and then you're off course. You know, 1 degree over a long period of time is actually quite far off. And so you have to constantly be looking at what are the priorities today? Okay, tomorrow, what are the like constantly reevaluating, because there are things that come in your path that you have to make pivots and changes. And so that constant need for communication is huge.
And I think that the kind of idea of this drills home to me when I start thinking about concepts like regret or time spent without thinking it through, which is often my problem. Is I'm a future thinker, and so I'm just I can see shoals or rocks ahead, and so I'm making course correction. But what I'm not doing is like in this moment of the course correction. And so I will let time slip through my fingers because I want to get where we're going, and the journey is less appealing to me than the destination. In fact, the idea of efficiency is so important to my personality that I will like give up some relationship on the way because I'm so driven to that destination. But one of the examples I've given before is a really good friend of mine brought in to work this giant jar of marbles. And I remember him, well, of course, I'm just thinking it's a decoration. And I start making fun of him for it. So I'm like, what dude brings a jar of marbles to work as a decoration? So I'm like, what's with the jar of marbles? And he goes, well, my wife gave this to me because every marble in there represents a Saturday that we have left with our kids. And so every Saturday he would take a marble out. And as that jar dwindles, it's like a reminder. And it was, even for me on the sideline watching it, was a good reminder. Time is precious.
Yeah.
Every moment should matter. And especially if I want to serve the two of you in where we're going, these moments matter. And what a way to honor people and draw in unity when we can recognize the value of time. It's the one commodity we can't make more of.
Yeah.
And yet we treat it so flippantly. And what a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get more money, make more sales.
That's right.
Heck, you can start other businesses.
Yep.
But you can't get time back. and it's always running, right? Like the clock is running right.
That's
now.
right.
Yeah, those videos about time with your kids mess me up. Like
Yeah.
you did 18 summers, and I'm just weeping when I was just trying to scroll Instagram, man. Get off me.
But even then, how old? Eli's what? Almost 4.
Yep. So he is 4.
He is
As
4.
of last
Just
Saturday.
after last Saturday. Okay.
Ooh.
See, time's flying.
Yeah.
So then it's like those moments are you want them to matter. Like we all want them to matter, but I don't know. It was just they slipped through my fingers.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I wanted these Saturdays to mean something with my kids, and it's like Saturdays would fly by. I'd be like, "What's happening?"
Yeah.
And it's a lack, I think, of for me at the time, of just putting the value above everything else. Like again, it goes back to prioritizing that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Individually visiting this.
Yeah.
But then also with the people that you're on this journey with, visiting it with them, thinking about the degrees of separation that you're referring to. Important for us as a team, organizationally, also as a home, like a different organism. But am I doing this with my wife? Am I doing this with my wife and Eli? Last night we were in the kitchen and we were looking at pictures from when he was just a little grub worm, like a baby. And that's what he was all bundled up. And then now at 4, like he's a little boy, like the recognition that time has passed. It's crazy. And then taking that, and Eli was born when I started working with you guys. And so just recognizing time, challenging the boat analogy, because here's the challenge. You captain the boat. I don't even know what a shoal is. I might be drinking a drink back in the back, and she's probably tanning. So maybe it's...
No, she's rowing. She's the only one rowing.
Are you kidding me? I'm putting my back into it. I'm rowing.
That works. So like a rowing boat.
Yeah, let's do rowing.
Not a motorized boat.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say maybe it's like one of those pedicabs, or what's the one where like everybody pedals? You're all in a circle.
Oh, I don't know what that's called.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I wouldn't know. Yeah.
Or I had this revelation recently that we were all on a walk. The group can only go as fast as the slowest walker. And so we've got to bring everybody up to speed in order to keep moving forward. Anyways, how do you guys find time to prioritize your time? Whether that's what you're going to do at work or at home or balancing work and home.
What I do is I spend my mornings, or sometimes even the night before, reviewing the next day's calendar and then learning from the calendar. So there are appointments that'll show up, and you've actually been in the not the crosshairs, but we had the conversation about an upcoming meeting, and I'll be like, why am I going to the meeting? Here's what I find about like this idea of like guarding our time is that for me, I feel like I'm always going to let someone down. And so there's this hesitation sometimes to really protect the time for my role. And so that's why like really understanding in Unity, like any organization, really understanding what I need to be doing to get toward our destination, get toward that purpose, helps me then understand what I have to say no to. And so reviewing my calendar, seeing what people are willing to put on my calendar, and then the hard one is to sit and say, no, I shouldn't be at that meeting, or I don't need to be there. I need to be doing these other things instead. It's incredibly difficult, but that's the thing that's helped me the most. And when I go a length of time without doing that, my calendar is a mess.
Yeah.
Like it gets unwieldy, and I find myself doing things that I know in my instinct is pulling me away from what I need to be doing in that moment.
Yeah.
It's like recognizing, because we can't make more time, if you're saying yes to something, there's always something else you're saying no to. And so it's figuring out what are those things you have to say yes to, and being okay with saying no to the other things, which I am not so good at. I want to be all things to all people.
Yeah.
And then I get exhausted and I can't be anything to anybody. And so it's really that act of service of, okay, if I can't, who can? And putting that person in place so that the things that all need to get done can get done. But it's, understanding each person's role to play, because trying to just do everything isn't going to serve anybody in the long run. And then understanding, how to maximize that time. I think there's a lot of, at least in my mind, like a lack of reflection of going back and like, was I truly maximizing every minute? And I think, you know, going back to what you said, like that prioritizing time, it's not just like living in the moment. It's how do you make every moment count? And that's something that I think I'm processing through even more recently is, how do I in every moment make the most of it and do the things that only I can do?
Yeah.
And then that will give other people freedom to do that for themselves. But by me just saying yes, I'm taking that from somebody else also and not doing a good job.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. But the calendar thing, I am not a morning person. So to look at my calendar in the morning is not happening. But I have started doing it in the evenings because I am like, okay, before I go to bed, how do I kind of set my mind on what's happening in the next day so that I can show up better? But before I was beating myself up like, oh, I'm not a morning person. So therefore I show up and I'm not good at work in the first hour of the day. But I'm like, oh, what if I just orient this to what actually works for me and I can do it in the evening?
There you go.
There you go.
Hey.
Yeah. There's so much wisdom in that, because in the same way that you've got to have clarity on your role and what you do and what you're responsible for and be true to that, you've got to know yourself and your personality and your preferences. Enneagram 2, not a morning person.
That's correct.
I try not to schedule anything before 10 a.m. with you.
Oh my gosh.
And nothing after 6 p.m.
Yeah, I'm a midday person.
For us, future thinkers, and so to be present and challenge ourselves to use that time well, or not to take on more than we can, because every yes is saying no to something else.
Right.
And sometimes that's come at the cost of my family.
Yeah.
Where I want to help, and so I'll do that thing that maybe that other person should be doing, which means I'm not doing the things that I should be doing.
Yeah.
And so I've got to do those things at some point. They've got to get done. Sometimes it's in the afternoon, evening hours. Well, then I'm not doing the things that really only I can do as a husband or a father. So there's this compounding effect. And so I've got to be both present in the moment, but also proactive, like you're talking about, looking at it the night before or the morning before, in planning my time. And then I've also got to schedule out time and be intentional. This is that whole idea of like a rest day.
Yeah.
To look back on and reflect on, how did I use my time this week and where am I going?
Yeah. Well, what was the quote when we were prepping? You were talking about people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years, 10 years.
Oh, totally.
And I think that's so true. We get very ambitious and we say yes to a lot of things. We're like, we're going to conquer the world this year, you know, all the New Year's resolutions. And then you get to the end of the year and you're like, oh, I sucked at all of those things. But if you look back, like you were talking about with Eli, over 4 years, you see the growth that has happened. And so it's how do we more intentionally just set realistic goals for ourselves and prioritize just a few things to make some traction instead of I want to accomplish all the things this year.
Yeah.
But what are like 1 or 2 things I'm really going to make an effort on, and how do I then reflect and look back on it too?
Yeah. A small, simple, repeatable next step. So my goal right now is to run 1 mile a day. And I'm like, in my mind, that's 10 minutes. I can do that, right? Like if I just get my shoes on, and knowing that if I do that, then I'll probably run a little bit further. Yeah. If I can just get that first little bit out of the way. It's the idea of atomic habits. And then eventually, a guy that I've seen do this really well, Kyle Watson, just started running. And now he's running ultra marathons. Yeah. And I'm like, how did you get there? And I just want to jump to that.
Right.
Because I see the success. Well, he started just by running slow, consistently. So if we just are consistent and don't quit, our time will compound and we'll get where we want to go.
We have these big lofty goals. I think it was, I could be totally butchering this, but I think it was John Maxwell that said, like, people want what I have, but they don't want to do what I did.
Yeah. They want to, do what I do. They don't want to do what I did.
Exactly. And so I think America, maybe specifically, has this, like, I want that. I want to be rich. I want to be a millionaire. I want to have the house. I want to have the family. But nobody wants to, like, really dig in their heels and, like, work to get to that place. We just want the shiny.
That's right.
Microwave culture.
Well,
yeah, for sure.
So bring it back to the organization. Like I want to have like a really like certain relationship with the two of you. So as we go on this journey together, like I want certainty.
Yeah.
I also want us to feel like when one of us has a win, we're all winning.
Yeah.
But am I willing to do the work to get there? Talked about clarity. Am I willing to spend the time to create the clarity so that we can have that certainty? And so that's really what speaks to prioritizing our time. And it also is born out of like understanding what my giftings are, but then correlate that to purpose. And so I'm gifted at, let's say, running an organization or operationally running a business. But if that's not what I'm called to do, in order for us to unify on this path that we're on, it's like you have to like have the emotional capacity to set those things aside and to say, okay, well then I shouldn't be spending my time, looking over the P&L of what we're doing, because that's not what my role is for this to work. And so that's how we then figure out who else do we need to join us on the journey. Somebody needs to look at P&Ls. So you have to keep adding team members who are okay with that particular role and then are all in. And that's what gives us, I think, the emotional freedom to then show up and do the things that only we really can do.
Yeah.
And that's what binds us together in unity is when we play our role. Another quick example is love basketball, love playing basketball, and in high school, it was like my dream to play varsity and to start and to play. Unfortunately, my dream got literally stunted by my height. And I never evolved. I never got tall enough to really challenge the starters.
I'm still waiting to grow up too.
Yeah. Thanks, Mom. I think she's like 5'1". Anyway, no bitterness there. But my dad's 6 foot, and I was like, maybe no, it didn't happen. So now I've been given this role on the team as basically the 10th player. And I remember as a senior debating, do I want that role, or would I rather just travel with the team, be a cheerleader? It's like I didn't know, what I wanted. The bonding of the 10, if I wanted that unity, I needed to play my role. I was a really good practice defender. Well, I poured my heart and soul into it, and we just had such unity on that team. It just wasn't the role I wanted, but it was the role that was needed. And that really is what kind of dictates a lot of how we spend our time, is if we have the emotional intelligence to understand what does the team need from me versus what do I want.
Well, I think too, even like just time itself like creates this fear in people when you actually do realize how limiting time is. And so then I think a lot of people, and myself included, will just operate out of that fear of like, okay, we have to move as humanly fast as possible because I don't want to lose a second. But that isn't always the best thing to do. Just move at lightning speed. Now, I think we're all pretty fast movers, and so we probably struggle with this more than a lot of other people. But
2/3 of us.
Hey, I move fast.
I wasn't talking.
Oh, you don't move fast? That's fair. Okay, so anyways, what I was saying is, though, that
was fast.
You have to slow down enough to bring that clarity. And so I feel like there's this weird dichotomy of like, okay, you don't want to waste time, so we can't sit and actually, kind of go back over, okay, what is everyone's role? What are we trying to do? Like sometimes I get frustrated by those meetings. I'm like, why are we wasting time?
Yeah.
Like we have to move.
We know what we need to do. Let's go.
What we need to do. But everybody doesn't know what we need to do. And so in the long run, you're probably wasting more time by not slowing down.
That's right.
And so I think that's one of my temptations as a leader is I just want to move fast. I want decision. I want things to happen. I want to check things off the list. But you can leave so many people behind in that. And so it's understanding how do we set everybody up for success so that we're all moving at the same speed and we don't have to just be dragging people behind us to move as quickly as possible, because that's a hard thing for me though.
Yeah.
No, it's a good example of like sacrificing preference or even sacrificing comfort. Like you've got understanding of it to unify with others.
Yeah.
Right. To slow down and unify with others.
Yeah.
And I like you're saying the answer's not moving fast and it's not moving slow, but there's this tension to purposing time and moving at the right speed at the right time.
Yeah, you said that better.
Put it on the bumper sticker.
That can be the bumper sticker.
Yeah.
I'll just like brain dump all of my thoughts, and then you can create the cool little sayings.
I'm just ripping off other people. It's somebody told me one time, wisdom is doing the right thing in the right way at the right time. And so the same is true of our time.
Yeah.
But it's a bummer that we really only think about time like weddings and funerals.
Yeah.
Right. Or as your kids grow up, or it always feels too late. Right. And so this is a challenge to people to be proactive in purposing their time. Confession, I would be totally embarrassed to share my screen time with you guys right now, like what pops up on my phone. And so this is a personal challenge that I'm issuing to myself and inviting you guys to hold me accountable to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want me to just slap the phone out of your hand, or how are we doing this?
I vote for that.
Yeah. No, I'm the crazy guy without a case on my phone. That would be terrible.
Can I ask something, Moo?
What?
Is it more than 5 hours?
Close.
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Also, I should leave my phone up. But all justifications aside, I realize there are things fighting for our time all the time.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Endless excuses and reasons and justifications. But I know at my core, I want to put my phone and screens and entertainment and comfort and checking out to the side in order to unify with others.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the ability for us as time slips through our fingers, I think the ability that we have is to remember the humanity of time. And so for me, that looks like if you've got checklists, if you've got to-do lists, I think of it this way: an unprioritized to-do list removes the humanity of what we're doing. But that's somewhat comforting a lot of times. And so think about that as it relates to like this idea of being busy.
Yeah.
Like we're busy people.
We pride ourselves on being busy.
Yeah. In fact, it's like we feel like we need to be busy in order to have value. Busy at work, busy in the evenings,
How are you
busy on the
doing?
weekends.
I've been busy.
Yeah, it's been so busy. It's like a badge of honor. But busyness, which is really just unprioritized checklists or to-do lists, remove the humanity. Without humanity, there can be no unity.
Yeah.
And so as we kind of enter into, weekends, or we enter into evenings, or even during work, prioritizing that time in a way that allows depth of relationship, that's really the time well spent. I mean, that's what we're trying to protect.
Yeah.
And so people have asked, now that our kids are growing out of the house, people will ask, hey, what'd you do this weekend? And often now my answer is we didn't do anything, but that's not true. We had time this weekend, last weekend, the weekend before, to invest into each other. Now, I'm not saying we do every weekend, but if you're not busy all the time, and you create some margin, now you can start being a little bit more generous with that time. And that's again, generosity always creates unity. So those are the things I try to keep in mind in a very busy time.
Yeah, that's good. That reminds me of some marriage advice that Jeff Johnson gave me when we were on the retreat. He was like, once you have kids and everything, there's so much vying for your attention.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I look back on those times when we were married before having kids, and, I wish we would have spent more time just going on walks with each other or sitting across from each other at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And like having true depth of relationship instead of sitting on the couch and watching a TV show while you eat.
That's right.
And so that was challenging to me of like, okay, there's always going to be things vying for our attention, whether that's your phone or your kids, or, work or other activities you could be doing. And none of those things are necessarily bad, but
No.
How do you prioritize the person that's in front of you or next to you, and actually push the relationship further instead of just continuing at the pace that you've been on? Because I think there's always depth that can happen with relationship. It's just so often we're okay with where it's at.
Yeah.
And then it's eventually probably going to start deteriorating
That's
if you're
right.
not investing in it. So
Dang.
Yeah, none of those things are bad, but maybe more than 5 hours screen time is. I don't know.
Judging. It's
Yeah,
just
no.
like maybe.
I don't know. I'm trying to
Show me
cite
yours.
science.
Well, yeah, Jordan Peterson was talking about marriage, and he was talking about just to maintain your household, the functions of the family. It takes 90 minutes of investment a week. Are we putting that in? Like talking about, hey, what does your schedule look like this week? Where are our finances at? What are we going to eat the next week?
Yeah.
And so it's important, and it takes time. I like yours, though, because it's making me think seasons change time as well. And so we have to be aware of what season we're in.
Yeah.
I wish that I could be like, hey, Eli, I'm focusing on your mom right now. But there's certain requirements of the season. There's times where you just need to go out and work hard and be in agreement that that's the purpose of this season. We're not going to stay here forever, but we need to do it to get to where we want to go. And so what season are you or your organization in, your family, whatever it is, and how do you prioritize your time based on that purpose?
Yeah, Pat Gelsinger once said that he and his wife sit down. He's the CEO of Intel, but they sit down every quarter and map out and prioritize their time for the next 90 days. And it's kind of what you're saying. Like you can create some understanding that, okay, for these next 90 days, like work's going to really consume a lot of my time, or these next 90 days, family's going to consume a lot of my time. But we just don't take, like you said, we don't take the time to sit down and prioritize it out so that we can all win with time.
Yeah. Your spouse will be a lot more understanding if you give them a heads up that work's going to be crazy instead of, why are you home late every single night? Oh, I have work things to do, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, otherwise they just get the effects, the overflow of it.
Yeah.
So have you let Mike know DCX is coming up? Lots of stress gallons are in my future.
aware.
he is very aware.
I'm going to need a bottle of wine and a foot rub at home when I get home every day.
Yeah. No, he's aware. We started dating during, I guess it was 2 years ago during the DCX season. And so this is his third DCX season.
Do you remember how distracted Kenzie was at that DCX?
Oh my gosh.
Kept
All
losing her backstage.
Googly eyes, and they were like, what's going on? Yeah.
No,
Just
nobody
gross.
knew we were dating back then. So that's how well I kept my focus.
Did Mike know y'all were dating?
Oh my God. Oh, he did. He would probably say I didn't. So I'm working on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, so speaking of time, how long are we going to wait for you to enter into this baby season?
Oh my gosh. You're just like everybody else. As long as I want to wait.
Good answer. I didn't think we were going to get an answer. So, all right. Well, I think it's time to wrap this up.
This is our last episode that we're recording before the conference. So everybody who's listening,
this is as happy as we're going to be, I
say
think,
your
for the
prayers.
next
We're
few
in the
weeks.
final sprint towards the conference, but super excited. If you have not bought your tickets, please do so. We would like to see you in the audience.
Yeah.
That is my pitch.
It's going to be an amazing lineup.
It is.
Great content from speakers that are great speakers, but speakers who care about people. And so I'm really excited myself to just sit there and soak it in.
Yeah. And to that point, Jordan Rayner's coming back, Redeeming Your Time, the single most helpful book I read last year on time.
Yeah.
And continues to challenge me, really practical ways to live it out. So check it out. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on another episode of the Table Network podcast. Hope this is valuable for you. Any feedback, pro tips you guys have on how you use your time, let us know. And as always, share this with people. Like, comment, subscribe. We hope to see you at a Table Network or a DCX very, very soon.